Let's try this again, shall we? I'm gonna hope that that is now my audio fixed. Let's try this again, shall we? Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay. I hope that that is now what? My audio fixed. Let's try this again. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So, I hope that that is now trying this again. Hello, everyone. I am Elise. Welcome back. This is not my usual streaming time. However, today we are going to be doing a little bit of campaign planning for my campaign that I usually stream on Sundays. So what we are going to be doing today is a little bit of spoiler stuff. If that's something you don't want to see for our Sunday games, feel free to dip out. Otherwise, feel free to stay, and I'm just going to plan a little bit, and then if chat throws up suggestions, they may not make it into the game. So that's your benefit for being here today. I guess sort of to start out, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are in the campaign, and we'll work from there. So currently, our lovely players are currently in a location called the Barrier Dragon Statues, which they just finished a very long combat where we had somebody flee. So today what I want to figure out is, where is that fleeing bandit going? What do I need to prep map-wise if there's going to be any sort of combats or anything like that? And then also, I have an idea because one of our players, Throgan, ended up getting a vision last session. What does that mean for the player's long-term sort of plans and plots and such? So let me just start a new little journal here for campaign plans. And yeah, so far it's been going very, very lovely, assuming that I can type. It's been going wonderfully. I have gotten some feedback from one of my players that they would really like a magic item, which is completely fair. I very specifically had not given them a magic item earlier. And it's getting to be about the time where they really would like that now, which is something I can definitely work with and I can absolutely fold into the plot. So I'm glad that that plan has sort of started playing out a little bit. But yeah, so I think that is then going to be us all solved. So step one for what we are doing today is the bandit that ran away. And then step two will end up being, we'll call it magic item. And if any of my players end up coming in and watching what's going on, they'll get a little bit of a sneak preview about that. So step one, bandit that ran away. What we ended up doing was, it was the bandit captain from here. And, ooh, hello. Pop-up windows. So we had this bandit captain that mentioned that he needed to go and tell the bandit king about what the players had done. So this gives us a little bit of stuff to work with already. The first is that there is a bandit king that exists. And the second is that this bandit king is, you know, replied to by other bandits in the area. Or at the very least, these bandits that attack the party sort of communicate with the bandit king. So that's going to be interesting. And I already have some ideas for that. With our first session, the players actually ended up fighting two bandits who were scavengers looking for magic items in a alchemy sort of house that was really run down, broken, such like that. So the first thing that I think would be a really neat way to tie in some of the early stuff that the party did is going in and putting one of those bandits in, because one of those bandits ended up running away, ended up escaping, is putting one of those bandits in here as either the bandit king or somebody close to the bandit king. And I'm not quite sure which direction I'm going to go with that yet. So one of those escaped. And then we're going to put him either next to the bandit king or as the bandit king. He's going to be in this area. The other thing that I can sort of start looking towards is, what do I want to do with some of our earlier plot threads that haven't been tied up yet. So the way that I like to DM is I throw out a lot of detail. I throw out a lot of different things that the players can interact with. And what I do is, depending on what they pick up and what they don't pick up, that's actually how I end up planning my future sessions. I find that this gives a lot of player agency. And I find that this also gives the players a lot of ability to sort of choose where their own adventure goes. You're not necessarily stuck to what you planned in the first session or in the first sit down that you had. So something else that my players did is they found a rusty sword in the in the second episode, actually. And they looked at this rusty sword and then did not, like they picked it up, they looked at it, they saw that it was magical, and then they left, and they did not bring the sword with them. So I'm thinking about throwing the rusty sword in this sort of plot point as well, because these bandits were where the rusty sword was and knew that there was loot to be had in that building. So that already gives us a little bit of stuff to work with. And then I need to, as well as determine what that bandit is doing, I need to also look at basically, how do I want to name him? How do I want to act him? Such like that. So step one, I think what I'm going to end up doing is the rusty sword is currently in the possession of the bandit that ran away. Bandit that ran away, T-R-A. Nope, can't do that. That ran away. So that bandit has that sword. It is a magic item, so it would make sense to me that if there is a society based on looting or based on basically taking what is not rightfully yours, this could be seen as a source of power, or at least a source of prestige. And from there, possibly this bandit ended up being a bit more powerful and a bit more in control than the last time my players saw him. So we're gonna set that in as gives bandit power. I'm also at this point realizing that I have not given this man a name yet, and I really want to do that. So I remember that this bandit was a gnome because I wanted to throw my players a challenge with the gnomes having the racial bonus of having advantage on wisdom saving throws against being charmed. Because a lot of my players have saber suck spells, so I wanted to make sure that they knew where their own weaknesses were. So starting with that. Oh, Foxy, hello, welcome in. Also, hello, and hello, Rando. Thank you for helping me set up my sound. But Foxy, don't worry. This is why I, promote in some of the different Discords I'm in, so that you guys can find and come and watch me go live. But yeah, so we're campaign planning today. This is going to be spoilers for my Sunday game, but I know that Foxy, at least you're not available during my Sunday game, so come and learn what we're doing. Come and see the behind the curtain plans. There's a bandit that ran away. There was a sword that my players decided to leave behind, even though it was a magic item. I'm going to combine the two of those together and make this my player's problem. So that's actually going to bring us to a little bit about what this sword is, because that'll be the next part of the mandatory background. So this sword is actually, I've put it in here as a key item. It was a rusty sword. So it's a claymore style sword that has seen better days. The blade and hilt are completely covered in rust, although the pommel is unaffected. So the funny thing about this sword is it could still be rusty, but it could also have been treated. If somebody has picked up the sword, if somebody has started to use it, they could have started to care for it. It has only been, I want to say 3 days since my players last saw this sword. So if it is clean, it would have to be, or likely you have been cleaned by magical means. If it is spotless, or by non-magical means, if there is still some, some showing of wear and tear and such like that. Terry the Terrible is a very good gnome. I do like Terry the Terrible as a name. I think I'll call him Terry. I don't know if he gets the terrible moniker yet, because he's not very well known yet. So we'll give him Terry. So Terry, the gnome bandit, has this sword, has this magic sword. I also know that Terry's brother was killed by the party. They, in fact, killed that man so hard that he did not, have a chance to live. So Terry is likely going to be very torn up about this and not want to see the party. With this, I do actually have a map that might be applicable here. Because I ended up making this field camp. Now, this field camp would make sense if there's somebody called a bandit king. You've got a couple of tents, you've got a good sort of area, a little bit of an outpost, like hill to watch out on. And this is something that my players could reasonably stumble into if we decide to throw a combat at them. I don't necessarily want to throw a combat at them right away, especially not someone like a bandit king, because they are still level 2s, and I feel like that could get out of hand very, very quickly. So I would like to dissuade my players from fighting, if that's possible. Which means it might be easier, even though Terry is very much upset that his brother is dead, he could, for some reason, want to either work with the party or more aptly convince the party to leave him alone and convince the party to leave the bandits alone. So let's see how we can work with this. Ooh, I have an idea. Okay, so the players know at the very least that there is a guy named a Bandit King. Rat King, I believe, is a level 2 adventure. This is also a custom module, and bandit captains are CR2 creatures, which is already a lot for my players to deal with. And if I want to throw multiple enemies at them, I can't throw in a bandit captain as well. The thing is, I also want to make Terry seem a little bit beefy because they've already fought him once before without killing him. So to me, my brain, it makes sense that Terry would be a little bit stronger than the last time they saw him. So what I think I'm going to do with the bandit that ran away, shall we say, is Terry wants the players to leave the bandits alone. Especially after Charlie, I think, was the bandit that ran away, has basically come and warned him that there are powerful people in the area. After Charlie warned him. And if somebody wants to correct me on the name of the bandit captain from last session, please feel free to do that. There is also, because Charlie saw, Charlie saw the bandit that ran away, not the first one, but the second one. Charlie ended up seeing that one of my players could either harness magic or accidentally use magic from one of the statues, from one of the dragon statues that they ran into last session. And what that dragon statue did was it basically, if it killed you or if you touched its like magical effect aura, it would suck the life energy out of your body and it would actually go into the statue, after which the statue had a magical effect. So that is... so here's the thing. Terry is from a combat in session 1, and Terry saw the party kill his brother. They tied Terry up, and then while the party was busy with something else, Terry escaped. Charlie was from session 4, and what Charlie ended up seeing was Charlie saw 2 hunting hounds and 3 bandits be just obliterated by the party while he ran away. So Charlie knows that the party is nearby. Terry doesn't know that the party is nearby, but does know that the party is bad news. So it's sort of this bandit's coming and saying, there's really powerful, scary guys over there. I don't know what's going on. And Terry's going, I know these guys. We need to get them out of here. Terry also knows at this point that they cannot fight and succeed in fighting the party. So Terry wants the players to leave the bandits alone. So Terry is going to approach the party in concern. And Terry, first of all, has a sword that looks like a claymore with a very large ruby stone on the end of the pommel. Claymore, ruby, and this is just the rusty sword. However, it is a bit less rusty now. Slaymore, that's funny. I'm actually going to leave that because that's a kind of fun typo. So you've got Terry, and then after Terry approaching the party, that is up to my players to figure out what happens next. So Terry is basically going to try and convince the party to leave, at least leave the bandits alone, probably by saying, oh, there's so many bandits here. You know, there's a captain that's far more powerful than myself and Charlie. Like, you should really get out of here. You should really not be here. And that should, at the very least, get the party starting to think about this area and think about the effects that their adventuring has on the world, which is one of the nice things that I like to, or which is one of the nice things that I would like to start having them think about at this point in a campaign. Explain, or show, I guess is a better word, show party effect on the world. After that, I think that's as much as I can plan here. There is one other thing that I do have planned, especially regarding Terry and this sword. However, that is one thing that I'm actually going to keep a little bit close to my chest because it should be revealed on Sunday as well. And I also like to keep a couple of little secrets from you guys. You don't get to know everything. Yeah, Claymore Gnome. I love Claymore Gnome. To be fair, the Claymore is not gnome-sized. The Claymore is actually like human-sized. The gnome just sort of has it. So that gnome's going to be having a real unwieldy time if he ever tries to use it. But yes, I'm going to keep Slaymore. Slaymore is very fun. So that's sort of thing one that I wanted to plan. And luckily with that, I already have a map set up. I might start populating this with enemies. Actually, do I already have the enemies loaded in? Let's find out. Ooh, I do. Okay, yes. Then this is what we're going to do. We're going to add a gnome bandit captain. And that's going to be Terry. So everyone say hello to Terry. Oh, Terry. So this is Terry. He's going to exist. This is going to be Terry's tent. Or actually, no. I want Terry's tent to be this tent, actually. This one is Terry's tent. However, I think it's going to be a bit more interesting if Terry actually, so assuming like north is up right now, my players are running from, flipping over to the world map really quick. Perhaps if Founder will load. Yep, there we go. So my players are currently here. I'm going to have the bandit camp be, about over here. So they will be entering from the east, which means Foxy has a question really quick here. Does the gnome have a clock or soap carved as little ducks? It's really cute. I don't know much about Terry yet. I think if Terry has a little trinket, it's going to be something that his brother gave to him or got for him. So maybe it's not soap carved as a little ducky, but maybe it's like a scrimshaw carving of a little ducky that his brother did ages back. So we have Terry over here. If the party is going to enter from this direction, I want actually to have Terry sitting in the forest just off the side so that he can intercept the party before they walk into the main area. With that, I then want to start populating this place with bandits. I want to put a second bandit captain. Actually, not a gnome bandit captain, just a normal bandit captain. I want to put one over here and say that this is like the medical tent, or like their sort of hospital, like field hospital area. So there's going to be a stronger guy over here. And then I want to just throw in at the campfire, say, oh, there's a couple of bandits hanging out. Maybe there's somebody up here keeping watch. And this is already a deadly encounter. So these bandit captains are CR3. Oh, the gnome is a CR3. The standard bandit captain is a CR2. And then each of these little bandits, I believe, is CR18. So this is already a very deadly encounter for my players. I am hoping that they're going to see that and they're going to recognize that. I will, however, also throw in a couple of mastiffs, because I've also already shown that these bandits work really closely with hunting dogs. Oh, and let's actually put a second bandit in the medical tent. However, I'm going to make him injured. If I can make him injured. Let's give him 6 health. So he's just about half. There we go. So there's my little encounter. I hope the players never fight this because it is massively unbalanced. We will see what happens. With that, we can then move on to our second little point of planning today, which is the magic item. So one of my players, for context, I am putting a very swole gnome in front of them, and I am very much hoping that they don't try and fight this gnome because they will die. Yeah, so actually, Randazart, you point out something really nice about my players. So Sunny, Kay, and May were in the campaign that's within the world of Garunk before this one. They, during that first campaign, refused to fight almost anything. I think every single combat they got into, sans 1 or 2, they ended those combats by talking their way out of it. So I very, very, very much expect my players to think more about political solutions than about combat solutions, especially knowing my personal group of players. That said, Rose is a wild card for me. I have never played with them before in any of my streams or any of my home games. And Feather, who plays Throgan is a very, very, let's say, I love Throgan, first of all. I love Throgan, but he's a very, I'm going to press the button character. He wants to figure out what things do. He's going to just sort of force his way through no matter what, which could cause problems in situations like this where I kind of want to dissuade them from fighting. So I'll just need to check that during streams and make sure they're okay. And they should know at this point that running away is an option due to the death dog that they had in the first session that did kill a player character. I cannot stress enough, there has been a player character death, so they should already know that their actions will in fact have consequences. Especially if this swole gnome comes up to them very friendly, I'm hoping that they're going to recognize that it is not necessarily a fighting occurrence. Yeah, there was in fact a player death session 1. I did mean to scare them during session 1. I did not mean to kill them. However, sometimes plans change a little bit. And then we get Vasil, the worst bachelor in the world. So moving on to part 2, which is the magic items. A couple of sessions ago, there was a magical salesman who never spoke, but gave the players the option of 3 magical items on a table, and they could take as many of those items as they wanted to. Now, my players decided to take 2 out of the 3 items, and the only reason they didn't take the 3rd one is because Yuka decided to yell at the salesman to get off her lawn. Reminder, Yuka is the player that is now dead. That was a magic item that could have saved her life. We love consequences of our own actions. So what I really want to do is I want to continue the sort of story of this magic salesman, especially because there are bigger machinations at play with this character. So I think if he is a magic salesman, why would he show up if not to peddle his wares? Now let's have him set up his little table again, and I will pull that up for you guys in chat really quickly. So this is our magic salesman. He's just got placeholder art right now. Oh, who is this? Oh, Yuka. Goodbye. This is our magic salesman. He doesn't have art right now. He just has a little placeholder. But he just basically sits at this banquet table that he set up. It's got purple cloth on top of it. And then he'll set up his wares here, and there's like boxes stacked behind him as well. Now, if we work with that, we can start to think about what my players might want this point in time. Now I'm going to have him have 3 options again, because I think the rule of 3s is a very fun one, and it's a theme I've already been using with this character, especially with Fig being able to ask 3 questions before something happens. So we're going to give our magic salesman 3 items. And the first item is going to be Yuka's item again, to show that his stock is consistent, but also mostly so I can sort of point my sister towards the item that she now at this point knows would have saved her character. And that item is a blowgun. A fancy blowgun, like a magic blowgun, but it's a blowgun. So yeah, going from there, we can start thinking about what else I want here. Now, the reason I have this on the little planning set is because one of my players, because there were only 3 items on the table last time, one of my players did not get a magic item. And they have been begging me for a magic item for a little bit now, which I was already planning on giving them, and I already have an idea for it. So I'm going to call it the Mask of the Fearsome. And what this item is going to be is it is for Cam. Now, Cam is our changeling in the group. She is a druid. And actually, during the first session, when Terry ran away, Cam had shapeshifted, wild-shaped into a tiger and tried to intimidate Terry into staying where he was. Proceeded to roll a natural 1, and then I think the next round rolled like a 2 or a 3. So it has been a bit of a running gag at this point that Cam is not very fearsome, can turn into animals just fine, but because they were mostly around farm animals, they never really learned how to be a combat capable or like a fearsome druid. So I think a really interesting little... So Foxy, that's actually a really funny thing you mention, a magic merchant coin. I will get there in just a second. So I want to add in a item that lets my player Cam have a little bit more luck in intimidating people, especially because their charisma is lower. And so I want to give them maybe proficiency, maybe expertise in intimidation if they're attuned with this magic item. Now, pausing the Mask of the Fearsome for a second, Foxy had a really good suggestion about giving this magic merchant a coin. I will not be doing this because this magic merchant actually already has a calling card that he likes to use. Now, this calling card is not something that has appeared in this campaign yet, but it is something that appeared in the last campaign I was in, where there was a magic salesman who his business card was a playing card 7 of spades. And so if you ever wanted to find him or approach him or have him approach you, what you would need to do is you would need to find a 7 of spades and toss it over your shoulder. So he already sort of has this calling card. The thing is, my players don't know about it yet. And I also don't want to give my players the ability to pull it up and just summon this man yet. Especially because this salesman, it is a very powerful salesman, and my players don't fully know who it is in character yet. So moving on to the Mask of the Fearsome, this is basically going to be Cam's magic item. And then I need to have one more thing on this table, which who knows what that is at this point. So let's go off and build the Mask of the Fearsome, and then we will come back to thinking about that third one. If I remember how Foundry works, it should be over in here, and I should be able to just build in a new item. There we go. So this is going to be an equipment because it is going to be a wearable item. And then I'm going to call it, when it is identified, yep, I'm going to call it the Mask. Oh, actually, I could call it the Mask of the Stripe. I think that's a better name. So I'm going to do that. And that's going to, of course, be a reference to my player was a tiger and couldn't intimidate anyone. So moving over, I'm just going to change that in here as well, so that if I look through my notes, I do know what I'm looking for. So the Mask of the Stripe is going to be not even an armor piece. It's just going to be a like a wearable. Like I'd put it in a face category, but that is not something there is, and it is going to be a uncommon magic item. Now it's going to have a weight of honestly, I think 0 or like 1/2 is a good weight for it. I'm imagining that it's going to be something that fits along Chamomile's jaw, and it's like molded or cast in such a way that it looks like there are teeth of like of a predator jutting up around their jaw. And we'll say that there is a price to this because it is a magic item, so it could be sold for profit if they wanted to. And let's put that at 5 gold because that is a lot of money for them right now. But this also isn't a super useful magic item to every single merchant in the world. Now, moving on with that, let's start looking at what this item actually does. So, going into this item, what I want it to be is I want this item to give a bonus to the intimidation skill. And there's a couple of different ways I can do this. So the easiest way is going to be just giving proficiency in the skill, or additionally giving some sort of advantage in the skill. With how low my characters are in level right now, I would actually prefer giving them proficiency because a +2 is already a pretty big boon for them. I forget the exact math on what advantage it will give you on average. I think it's about 3 or like 3.5 on average. Again, I don't know. There's people who like crunch the numbers for D&D. That's not me. So for this one, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to give them proficiency in the intimidation skill. So when attuned and born, the mask of the stripes provides gives. I'll say gives the wearer proficiency in the intimidation skill. I'm going to explicitly leave out expertise if you already have proficiency, just because I don't think any of my players actually have proficiency in intimidation, and I don't see any of them picking it up anytime soon. If it comes up later, it comes up later, and I can, make sure the rules are working then. This will take up an attunement slot, so that is worth noting. So, Foxy, I could make it a +1. I also think it's going to be a little bit more helpful because I do think Cam actually has a minus in charisma right now. Let me check that for you guys. Let's see. Come on, Chamomile. Oh, Cam actually does have a +1. Look at that. I wouldn't have believed it. Cam currently has a +1 to charisma, so I could make it a +1 and then it gives you a +2. But I feel like for a magic item, it should be a little bit more of an oomph, especially for something that is as niche as this item is. If it was something like it gives all of your charisma skills a plus, like a positive modifier, I think a +1 would be great. However, because it is just one skill that I don't see my party using a whole bunch, I think I'm going to leave it at proficiency bonus for now. And that also lets that item scale with my players as they level up. So that's a really good question. I could, so Foxy has asked in chat, by the way. Foxy has asked in chat, how does the mask help with intimidation? Does it light up? Do you get laser eyes? I think that's a really good question to have. I also think that's something I'm going to leave for my player Rose to actually tell us. So what I know is that the mask is going to sit along the bottom of your jaw and is going to look like a predator's jaw. How that helps is for my player to figure out. It's for my player to describe to us so that we can have a collaborative game. I do like to leave things like that in the hands of my players just because I think it gives them a little bit more fun and a little bit more enjoyment to direct how their character ends up looking over time. Randazar also has a question in chat, which is, what's the lore behind that mask? And that's a very interesting question to ask. So this mask is quite literally an item that is being made for Chamomile, both out of game and in game. The way that the last 3 magic items that my magic salesman gave them worked is they were sat on the table, sort of one next to the other. And in front of each of those items, there was a small trinket. So one of them had a small twig with like a druid crafted leaf and berry on it. One of them in front of the item was sitting a small crow's feather. And then in front of the third one was sitting, oh, what was it? It was either like a small book or a small quill with the insignia of Fig's deity on it. So each of these items had very clearly been marked for one of the party members. And for chamomile, what I'm going to have is basically on the table in front of this item is a small stone statue, because chamomile is a sculptor by trade. So I'm hoping that a small little earthen statue is going to be enough for people to know, oh, hey, this is probably connected to chamomile in some way. With that, these items are also very, very specific to the players. And to the characters, not to the players. So if I pull up what the other items had been, somewhere, if I pull up what the other items had been. Yeah, there we go. We have a couple of different items. One of them was Alchemy of the Feathered. Now, that refers to Throgan. Throgan is an alchemist, is a Kenku alchemist. So already, even just the title of that magic item is very clued into his character. And I hope that my player Feather is starting to think about that as they're playing their game and looking at this item. The second one is the Book of Threes. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, this magic item salesman works in the Rule of Threes. And Fig, the cleric in the party, was actually the one to figure that out. So Fig had a vision in his background where he actually saw this magic item salesman and was able to ask this salesman 3 different questions and get yes or no answers to them. As such, Fig now has the Book of the Threes, which is also known as Book with an Embossed Rose. So there's a rose embossed on the cover of this book. And it's got like special rules about if 3 questions are written inside the book, one of them will be answered truthfully within the next 24 hours. If the book is capable of doing so. I should state on that one. The other item that I have in here is the Blowgun of Beggars. Now, the Blowgun of Beggars is the item that was for Yuka, who's the player character that is now dead. This blowgun was a magic item that actually had a healing potion as its ammunition instead of any sort of dart. This was a reference to when we were setting up the campaign and when we were going through session zeros. Sunny K, who plays Yuka and now plays Vassal, Sunny K was very, very concerned that they would not have enough healing ability in the party. And this is what I want to remind you, dear viewers, that they have 2 druids, a cleric, and an artificer. That is 3.5 healers. They were going to be fine. But my sister was very unsure about that and asked on multiple occasions, like, hey, are you going to give us health potions? Will you give us health potions? Can we buy health potions? Are we going to die? So I made this magic item for her character, Yuka, because it was just a way to heal. It was 1 free, lesser healing potion per day. And then my sister didn't take that healing potion, even though her character was dying. So that's quite interesting. We'll certainly just sort of sit there with that. So this mask, in the same vein as those other 3 items, is going to have been made specifically for chamomile. Cam has not been able to intimidate people. This happened before they met the merchant for the first time. So I think it would make a lot of sense if whatever this merchant is pulling from, whatever source of information or whatever source of magic items, this merchant has selected this mask for some reason. I do also very much like all of the ideas in chat, which are quite nice. Foxy has a really good one as well, where it's a mask from an ancient civilization or an ancient group. Rindasart also has a very interesting thing about possibly giving it advantage on intimidation checks on specific types of targets, which is very interesting. But with my current players, I guess adeptness with the virtual tabletop, just because it is a new software, if I give them something like that, it's something I would want to wait for a couple of weeks on to make sure that they have a little bit more time to get used to it and used to using and rolling dice in this system. Though giving it specific targets is a very neat idea, and I might have to play with that more in future. In the meantime, I'm going to try and write some flavor text for this mask because that seems neat. So, Mask with the Stripes. A pewter mask in the shape of let's do a cannon. do like a canid's lower jaw. When attuned, not when attuned. Upon wearing it, the pewter melts into your, let's say it melts into your pores. Shouldn't do that. It's really bad for your health, I do believe. And the mask begins to move with your face. Or moves with your jaw, I should state. In order to remove it, it might need a, you'll for sure have to deattune with it, but you may also need to use a break, like a remove curse spell. I'm not sure yet. I think that's going to depend on how much my player wants to put it on and take it off, whether that's going to have some sort of consequence. So I think leaving with that, first of all, let's save that before I lose the information. Let us switch this around a little bit. So it is going to be clothing. It is not going to be an armor type. It is going to require attunement. And you are going to automatically gain, or actually you are going to be proficient with this because it is just clothing. It is not any sort of armor. Additionally, it is going to have the magical property. And I'm gonna say it has no activation cost and you can use it as desired. I'm not going to fill in any of this because the target is just going to be whatever the target of the intimidation save is. And this is, as far as I am aware, mostly used for combat in the BTT. I'm also going to say that it does not require a action to use. It is just going to require an ability check. So, ability modifier is going to be charisma. And then nothing else. So there are the equipment details set out. And then the effects are, there's going to be a passive effect on this, which, let's see what I can do here. I'm not filling this in actually. No, we're not doing it. We're not doing it that way. I'm just going to trust Rose to sort of know what's going on. Now, that moves us on to that. I then also like to add a unidentified sort of description and name. So I think I'm going to call this one pewter. I'm going to call it a pewter jaw. And then we'll put a description in here as well, which goes something along the lines of like, oh, it's a pewter jaw. It looks like a cannon, yada, yada, yada. And then that should be fine. Unidentified description is what I'm looking for. Delete that, save that, and then there is our lovely magic item for chamomile. So there's one magic item. That's going to be for one of my players, Rose, who has been asking for a magic item. And then we can start moving on to the next one. Yes, speak with animals for dogs. Little did you know, not only does it give you intimidation, it also gives you the ability to talk to the good boys and girls. Yeah, so Foxy, that's actually a really neat thing that you've pointed out about like different items of clothing can have different effects in different places. That's something that I think is a really, really neat concept to have. And if my players ever start to go into disguise or in sort of the subterfuge situations, I am going to have to start tracking what they have. As of right now, none of them have really been trying to do that. So I don't know how much it's going to come up in the sort of grand scheme of this campaign, though I will mention that I can already see a very specific type of personal protective equipment becoming very important very quickly with a couple of the actions that these guys have already taken. As a warning, just to everyone watching, anyone who might be interested in my campaign, we do have plans for there to be a plague in game. It is not going to be anything that is strict to real world. It is going to be a very metaphysical plague, but it is likely going to have, mirrorings of real world experiences, mirrorings of real world plagues, because that's just kind of how fiction works. Where, you know, you talk about what you know and you add your own spin on it. Also, my sister is an epidemiologist, so she will go kind of hard on this, which is nice. So moving on from there, we've now built, Rose has a new magic item. I shouldn't say Rose, I should say Cam. One more. Cam has a magic item denoted with a small, let's say clay statue, shall we? And then that should be enough to identify to the party that that's for. Yeah. So then that leaves, there's one more spot on the table that I can theoretically hand another item to my players if I wanted to. And I can't help but remember that there's this sword that's magical that my players didn't pick up earlier. Now, this sword was, of course, the rusty sword that we talked about a little bit earlier when I was talking about Terry, the Bandit King. So I kind of want to tie in that plot point into this plot point to give just a little bit more of crossplay if they do end up looking into either of these things. Oh, Foxy! I did not see the music box suggestion. I must have missed that in chat earlier. I'll have to go back and look at that later. Or you can type it again now and then I can look at it now. So I'll just write down music box here because that does sound interesting. I'll wait for a bit more information to come in. But then the other thing I can add is the, I'll just keep calling it Slaymore because that's really funny. And I'll call it Slaymore Scabbard. Now, I know a Claymore wouldn't have a scabbard, really. It's for flavor. It doesn't matter. Rule of cool. Stop. So I think it could be interesting if the magical citizen has a scabbard of a blade long past. And one other thing, so one other thing that I could do is one of my players just had a vision about a sword and a group of heroes killing a dragon, slaying a dragon. So I'm trying to wonder if I want to make this scabbard be made out of the dragon hide from that dragon that they saw slain. This would have been about 250 years ago, so it would make sense that something like that could have been made. I see Foxy back in chat now. A music box where when it's opened, a random person falls asleep. That is quite interesting. I will, here, let's see. I'm just gonna write that down very quickly. So that's quite a neat idea. The one hesitation I have with that is I don't see a purpose for the party to have that necessarily. And so I don't know if I want to be giving them items at this point that don't directly tie into either things they've already said that they want to play with or directions that I think they're going to want to go. So first of all, I'm going to put Foxy's name in here because thank you, Foxy, for the suggestion. It's very lovely. I will put a little bit more thought into that and see if in future there's a place where that can get sort of added in and see what my players would end up doing with it. I definitely think it's not going to fit in this specific table setup just because of how much of this I want to be plot related on this one. So back to sort of the conversation or the talk point I was at before I got Foxy's message. There was a blade that slew a dragon. And so I was wondering if I should make the scabbard of this blade out of dragon's hide, because I think that would be quite interesting. The thing is, I also don't necessarily want to give my level 2 party dragon's hide, because that seems like a very quick way to increase their power level without necessarily them having worked for it very much. And that would end up giving me some issues in higher levels when now they need cooler stuff, and I've already given them the hide of a dragon, or at least part of the hide of a dragon. So what I might do instead is, it's not going to be dragon's hide, as cool as that would be, but it is going to be embossed with 5 types of like 5 different elemental types. So if you were in my last stream, which was last Sunday, you would know that there are 5 dragon statues that stand about 2 stories tall. That each of the dragon statues is a different color and exudes a different type of energy. So there's one that exudes like lightning damage, there's one that exudes fire damage, there's one that exudes acid damage, there's one that exudes ice or snow damage, and then there's one that exudes necrotic damage. And you might notice that one of those is a bit of an odd one. And there is a reason for that we'll get into later. But for now, what I think would be interesting to have is this scabbard is basically embossed with little symbols connected with those magic types. So there's little lightning bolts, there's little flames, there's bubbles and wreaths of ice and snow. And I don't quite know what necrotic would be yet, because it could be skulls, but skulls seems just very, very apt. Ooh, I've had an idea. Oh no, is the stream breaking up? Without necessarily them having worked for it very much. And that would end up giving me some issues in higher levels when now they need cooler stuff, and I've already given them the hide of a dragon, or at least part of the hide of a dragon. So what I might do instead is, as cool as that would be, but it is going to be embossed with 5 types of like 5 different elemental types. So if you were in my last stream, which was last Sunday, you would know that there are 5 dragon statues that stand about 2 stories tall. That each of the dragon statues is a different color and exudes a different type of energy. So there's one that exudes like lightning damage, there's one that exudes fire damage, there's one that exudes acid damage, there's one that exudes ice or snow damage, and then there's one that exudes necrotic damage. And you might notice that one of those is a bit of an odd one. And there is a reason for that we'll get into later. But for now, what I think would be interesting to have is this scabbard is basically embossed with little symbols connected with those magic types. So there's little lightning bolts, there's little flames, there's bubbles and wreaths of ice and snow. And I don't quite know what necrotic would be yet, because it could be skulls, but skulls seems just very, very apt. Ooh, I've had an idea. Oh no, is the stream breaking up? Second back. Let's see if Foxy or Randallsart can see me again. I'll give it about 2 minutes if I don't hear anything in chat. I do think I'm gonna have to end the stream here for today. Yeah. Well, this is a shame. Thank you all for watching. I don't know if this is even going to get through to you guys. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to check me out on Sunday at our actual live game.